Okay, well, thanks, everybody. So this is the media availability for the documentary. I'd ask that you keep your questions for the first part at least to the documentary. Bradley Jackson is the director of Facing Nolan. Obviously, Nolan and Reid are here too. So we'll just take questions if you raise your hands, and you gotta wait for the mic.
To all three of you, what have you thought about how the documentary has been received so far?
Well, they probably could give you a better idea than I can, but I've been really pleased with the turnout that we've had, and then also the reviews that we've had. So you never know what to expect on that, but I've been pleased with it.
You know, we went into South by Southwest, got in the film festival, and didn't really know. I had no idea that we're new at this. Bradley's done this before. And I kept waiting for the bad review, and we really haven't had anybody crush us. I think at the end of the day, Bradley's made an incredible film, and people really have got to see the Nolan Ryan that we see as family, and they've got to see the relationship with my mom and him, and I just can't thank Bradley enough for being able to pull out what is the true essence of our family and my dad's career, and I think it's resonated with people.
Yeah, when you grow up in Texas and you're a sports fan, you know, the Express is kind of, you know, the shining light on the hill. And so getting the opportunity to make the documentary about him was honestly the honor of a lifetime. And I'm really thrilled with how it's been accepted so far, and really excited to show the movie in front of Ranger fans.
Reid, I'm curious, what kind of ground rules, when you were approached with this idea, did you have any ground rules about how your dad was going to be portrayed? Or?
Yeah, so how this came about, when I left the Astros in 20, Bradley had reached out to my brother, but he didn't really have much time, he and Russell Groves. And so Reese goes, hey, you got some time on your hands, how about this? And I looked at it and I was like, yeah, that'd be awesome. Why has there not been a documentary done? So I asked my dad, I said, hey, what do you think of this? No. Like, just point like no. And I said, okay, cool. And so I called these guys anyway and hit it off with them. And I think the key to bringing out the best in him is people that he can relate to. And Bradley and Russell are both Texans. They lived in Austin for a long time. They have made other successful movies. And so we went to my mom and said, look, Reese and I love this idea. We like these guys. You're the only one that can sell this to them. And so my mom got it done, and we committed him to, we said, look, 1 interview is all you're going to have to do. Then it grew to 2, and then it grew to like following him around everywhere. So we had a little bit of scope creep on this deal.
Yeah, I have Reid to thank for that. You know, he really helped sell it. So.
Bradley, how early on did you realize that it was going to be sort of a love story about Nolan and Ruth?
I didn't think that going into pitching it to the family. I just thought it would be a great, you know, no one's had a better career, more interesting career in baseball than this guy. But I think it was when I first met Ruth, and she told me stories about how he would be studying, when he was playing for the Mets, he would be studying books on cattle and ranching and banking. And that he never expected baseball to be a long career. And to me, that gave me an insight into her. And then I read some of her book, where especially her chapter where she wrote about the final game in Seattle, where he kind of threw his arm out. That chapter really was very emotional and very moving. And if you spend 5 minutes with Ruth, you realize that she's one of the sweetest people in the entire world. And that without Ruth, I don't think he might agree that he might not have pitched for 27 years. So it's pretty special.
Evan.
Nolan, we heard from Reid on this, and we just heard from Bradley. The fact that this has kind of turned out in a lot of ways about your relationship with your family, and in particular with Ruth, how did you feel that portion of the story was told, and how difficult was it for you to tell that story?
Well, I really thought, Evan, that it would be more focused on my career and what happened in my career, and I really didn't know what to expect, and I guess I really never even thought about the family aspect of it, and the involvement with our children and our grandchildren, and I'm really thrilled that they did that, because I think they captured what was really important role that played in my career, and the fact that we used to take the kids on the road when school was out, and we felt like it was worth the expense, and having them there, and allowing the boys to bat boy and do all the things that they did. So I think they captured that well, and so I was real pleased with it.
Bradley, my name's Gil Leverton. I was riding around here when Nolan first came to the Rangers. They've been showing the trailer out here since game one, and it looks like you had incredible cooperation from former major leaguers. I was wondering what kind of reception you got from them and how that panned out.
Unbelievable. I think they're all still a little afraid of him. No, I mean, honestly, you know, we set out a list of people we wanted to interview, and we got almost all of them. And that's not because of me. That's because of these two gentlemen up here. You know, we would give a list to Reid, and we go, hey, Reid, can we interview these people? Pete Rose, George Brett, all, you know, Hall of Famers. And you know, a week later, we'd be like, all right, you got an interview with George, you got an interview with Randy Johnson, you got an interview with Craig Biggio in the Astrodome. Like, the access was unbelievable. And to me, you know, that's like, as a filmmaker, that's like being a kid in a candy store. Getting to like talk to these legends, and the legends want to talk back because they're so excited to talk about facing another legend. So,
You know, I think the neat thing, when I called a lot of these guys, and, you know, I think COVID and just what we've all been through, people wanted to connect. And the conversations I would have on these first calls before they even got there, I'd call Bradley and say, man, you're going to have a ton of stuff. Because I just got off an hour phone call with one of these people. That's how it was. None of them were quick. They were all very reflective. And I think we caught the whole crew, my dad included, kind of at the right time in life, when there's been a little bit of time since when they played, all of them. And they're a little bit, you know, more into reflecting on where they are today in their lives. And so it was really a special, special time.
Mr. Ryan, my name is Chris, and I gotta ask you that question as well, because a lot of those guys you competed against, to see them now, you know, grace your career, your prestigious career, can you talk about that?
Well, it's interesting. I found it really interesting, their perspective and how they felt about facing me, and because obviously I got it from one perspective, and that was being the pitcher and the competitor that I was, and like I said in my Hall of Fame, I particularly didn't care for them, and that was my mindset, you know. But that's the things I had to do to compete, and enjoy being around them a lot more now that I don't have to worry about getting them out. But I found it was real interesting, and I think it brings a different dynamic to the documentary.
Yeah, I enjoyed the George Brett, you know, comments, because he hit 300 off of you, I think, didn't he, for his lifetime?
You have to ask Pete.
Yeah, Pete would know.
Pete
But
knows all
Rose
those
would know that
numbers.
answer.
if you talked to George, you would never thought he got a hit off of him.
Levi.
I think it's interesting to hear you talk about, you know, those players that you played against and the respect that they have for you as an opponent. I'm just curious, if you were to make another documentary, who would be the player that you would be happy to talk about from the time that you competed against those guys? Is there anybody that stands out?
Oh, there's a lot of players. You know, every pitcher has players that they have good success with, and then there's other players that you don't. But to give you an example, I thought Henry Aaron was as tough out as I faced, because not only was he a great power hitter, but he was a great hitter, and he didn't swing at bad pitches, and he was very selective, and at that stage of my career when I faced him, wasn't a good time, because I didn't have a good curveball. I had a good curveball, but it was very inconsistent, so I couldn't throw it in a lot of situations. And he was a good fastball hitter. So there were people like that, and I always tell this story that one year when Sal Bando was with the Oakland A's, it didn't matter what I threw up there, Sal Bando couldn't hit me. And somebody asked me, a writer asked me at the end of the season, if you had to get one guy out, who would you want see you at the plate? And I said, Sal Bando. Well, next year I couldn't get him out. That's what I threw, and I said, I'll be darned if I'm ever opening my mouth again like that.
Nolan, after watching the film and being able to look back on your career, what is the feat that you are most amazed by that you pulled off?
Well, you know, when I watch the film, I really kind of reflect back on how long 27 years is, and it almost made me tired. And the commitment that I had to make to compete for that long, and but I took a lot of pride in being in shape and being able to compete with people that were half my age, and so that was also a factor that came into play. But I think just realizing over the span of time that took in.
You got another one?
I do. Bradley, you talked to a ton of people. Were you involved in the editing process? Because that seemed like you probably have 10 hours of footage.
Yeah, we could probably make another documentary based off the stuff on the cutting room floor. I think the George Brett interview could just be a movie in and of itself. Yes, I was a part of the editing process. We have a great editor. His name is Eric McMichael. He's incredible. You know, when you're making a documentary, the editor is your co-writer, kind of, because you know a documentary is not scripted. You know, and so he and we would storyboard all this stuff out, and then he would cut a scene, and then we review it, and then I'd sit with him, and you know we'd add a quote from here, a quote from there, and you know trying to condense 27 years, like you said, it made me tired sometimes too. But yeah, it was thrilling to get to watch, especially when all the Major League Baseball footage would come in, and we'd get to see some of these things that guys were telling the stories about. That was really thrilling to watch.
I think the tough thing was we didn't get everybody we filmed in the movie. And so I was like the manager that had to tell the guy who was getting released. I had to call and be like, I'm so sorry, you're not in the final cut. It was tough, but we just didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
Evan?
Nolan, two questions. First, what do you hope people get out of watching this film?
Well, I think we have a gap with the young people today that they don't put a lot of emphasis or think about history, and I think that it gives them an opportunity to kind of see what happened and how the game has evolved to where it is today versus where it was back when I started, and I would say that that's the biggest thing. And you know, I think there's a lot of those hitters that I faced that I think people enjoy the fact of what they thought and their point of view.
And then the other thing is, we've only seen this clip about 50 times, but what were you so fired up about striking Pete Rose out that one clip?
Well, I think that was you edited in the when you were doing this.
No, that was
The Mad Hungarian?
No, the guy from Cincinnati they called the Animal used to do that.
Brad Leslie.
And that was against Cincinnati.
Yeah, okay, all right, okay.
Yeah, it didn't have anything to do with Pete.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
He was kind of making fun of the guy.
Well, he was doing it, so I thought, well, I can. All I gotta do is strike somebody out, and if I don't, then I can't do it.
Good, TR?
Speaking of history, a couple of historical topics. Number one, in '89, how amazing was it, you looking back now, that you ended up leaving the Astros and coming to Texas? And that '89 season, it seemed like, from a personal standpoint, everything went well for you. What was that whole transition in year like for you?
Well, I was really pleased with the way that season went because I think the Astros thought that I was pretty much on the way out, and I couldn't have been any happier with making that change over with the Rangers, and the fact that I felt like that I had a really good year for them.
Secondly, you were only supposed to be here for 1 year. I think you thought this would be your last year, but you ended up staying for 4 more. And I think you thought this team was close to winning. So my question is, you had a lot of good things happen, you had the no-hitters and the 300th win, but you guys did not quite get to where you wanted to go as a team. What were those 4 years for you like in the 90s?
Well, I had given the Rangers asked for, option for another year, and so I really came here with the intent of playing 1 year, and then when they exercised their option, you know, I had the opportunity to say, no, I'm not, but I enjoyed the '89 season so much, and I thought we were on the verge of being real competitive that I chose to come back. And then the last year I was here, you know, I really had problems staying healthy with my knee problem and the arm problem I had in Seattle. And so that winter I announced that going into that year that I was going to retire, and Doug Melvin was the new GM, and he called me that winter and asked me if I'd consider coming back for 1 more year. And I told him, I said, Doug, if I honestly thought I could give you 200 innings, I would be there. But I don't believe I can do that. I said, I think my body's trying to tell me something. And so, you know, when I reflect back on that last year, probably stayed a year too long. And, but you know, the fact that the 6th and 7th no-hitter happened, 5,000 strikeout, there were some personal things that happened here that made my stay with the Rangers even that much more enjoyable.
I wish the wild card would have been in. They might have snuck in one of those years that were close.
But the no-hitters, you thought that was in your past, right?
I really did. You know, when I threw the 5th against the Dodgers, I really thought that was part of my career that was behind me. And so certainly when the 6th and 7th came along, I certainly didn't anticipate that. Even though there had been times I'd gotten close, but that didn't happen.
Yeah, you drove us crazy several times before to finally get the 6th and 7th. What did that mean to you? The 6th and 7th no hitter. What did that
Well, you know, that was, you know, when I look back on those games, if you look back on the 7th, I had a really good breaking ball that night, and I think that was the difference. And then also when I look back on the 6th and 7th, there were plays that were made that put me in that position, you know, whether it's Jeff Houston making that play on Ricky Henderson, or Gary Pettis catching that little blooper in center field, you know, so everything has to come together, and it just happened to do that.
Take 2 more, Ozzie, then Levi.
Yeah, Nolan, we know about your pitching, but today is the 35th anniversary of your last Major League home run, I guess, ironically, the break. And one of the other home runs, I think it's a Hall of Fame. Do you want to talk about some of your home runs?
Well, I tell people, you know, I said half my big league home runs were off Hall of Famers, because the first one was off Don Sutton, and Don never liked hearing that. But anyway, I think everybody, all pitchers would like to hit, and I think one thing that the game before they came in with the DH like it is now is that they put more emphasis on pitchers hitting, trying to make them more part of the offense. But I think coming in with the DH, I never was comfortable with the fact that one league had DH, the other league didn't, and they switched back and forth, and you had injuries show up, and that could be real detrimental to an organization trying to win. So.
Last one, Levi.
So you had a ton of iconic moments here, whether it be the no-hitters, the 5,000 strikeout, the 300th win, the Robin Ventura, the bloody lip from Bo Jackson. Is there one moment from your time with the Rangers, when you look back, that sticks out to you above the rest?
Well, you know, there's events that happen that are meaningful to me, and because of what happened around them, and like it's the 5,000 strikeout, being Ricky, and the electricity in the ballpark that night. That's really special, and so it was special to me to be part of that. The 7th no-hitter here, being at home, and certainly was special, and the fact that you don't ever anticipate those things. And then, you know, you look back on the Bloody Lip or the Robin Ventura, you know, I feel for Robin that picture, and I get asked that question probably if I run into people, it's probably the third question that comes up. And so I'm sure that he probably gets it to some degree too, and so, I feel bad for him on that. And, you know, the Bloody Lip is one of those weird things that happened, you know, and it just, was to the point that at least it didn't keep me from pitching the rest of the game.
And a quick follow-up, probably taking one for the team here, but I think probably a lot of people would like to know, how fast do you think you could throw a fastball right now?
I can't throw a lick anymore. I was throwing a softball with my granddaughter the other day, cause she was playing softball and we were out there working on things, and that's the first time I've thrown in I don't know when, and it's just the fact that I picked up something, and I was at the ranch and I was showing some kids how to skip a rock on the water, and I threw this rock and I pulled something in my shoulder, and it never has gotten any better, so I probably got a cuff problem, and I'm gonna live with it. And I was thinking of all the throws I made, you know, I hurt my shoulder throwing a rock, and you throw it from below anyway, you don't throw it overhand, and so you live with it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right.